thanks for staying tuned. Welcome to our COVID-19 update at this hour. I am Ladi Akiritoluale. Here are the highlights for this hour. As Nigeria prepares to gradually ease the lockdown, Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, tells Nigerians flattening the curve is a collective responsibility. Nigeria to join more than 100 countries in solidarity trials for COVID-19 vaccine. And more than 1 million people around the world have recovered from the COVID-19 virus. Nigerians have been asked to cooperate with the authorities in strict adherence to the guidelines on the containment of the coronavirus pandemic. The Secretary to the Government of the Federation and Chairman of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, Mr. Boss Mustafa, explains that the sacrifices should be seen as a collective responsibility in the fight against the pandemic. Mr. Mustafa mentioned this today at the daily national briefing of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 in Abuja.
Experiences from other nations that have eased up the lockdown, there have been spikes. Even our sister country very close by, Ghana, 10 days after the lockdown, the figures just went up. Germany had that experience. Several other countries have experienced that. And everybody is navigating the rough road, trying to find a solution to it. Part of what I see them do is that they try as much as possible, in spite of the spike, to ensure very strict compliance. Because sometimes if you can be disciplined enough, compliance does not become a major problem. Sweden, there's no lockdown, there's no use of mask, but compliance has been part of their culture. But we have a challenge with that. If we can just get our people to understand that this is a collective responsibility, that we must work together to ensure that these directives and guidelines are meant for our good. I will remind us again and again that the time for personal responsibility is now. And we better own up to this, that we have a part to play as individuals and collectively as a people to ensure that we do everything to flatten the curve and begin to see a decrease in the levels of infection.
Governor of Lagos State, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, has announced an additional life and health insurance for all frontline health workers in the state. Governor Sanwo-Olu made this known at the State House in Marina, where government officials, leaders of the Nigeria Labour Congress and organized labor unions held a low-key event to commemorate this year's Workers' Day. The governor also used the opportunity of the May Day to appreciate frontline health and emergency workers, whom he described as heroes, for sacrificing their personal well-being for the efforts aimed at combating the coronavirus pandemic.
Our ongoing efforts to contain the spread of COVID-19 in the state approved a 400% increase in the hazard allowance of our health workers in the state for the month of April. Thereafter, there has been representation for us to see how it's not only for April, but also push it for other months. I can assure you that we will continue to pay that allowance for a very long time, for as long as we have COVID around us, beyond the general hazard allowance that we pay. That we also pay a COVID allowance, which far exceed even what some of them earn as monthly salary. And I'm also glad to announce to you that with the cooperation of some private sector, we have doubled insure our frontline health workers, especially on the COVID line.
Meanwhile, the World Health Organization says it will soon extend its clinical trials of COVID-19 drugs and vaccines to Nigeria as soon as the processes are finalized. This formed part of the conversation at the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 briefing in the nation's capital today. WHO country representative Fiona Brocker says there are 89 vaccines currently being made, with 7 already in clinical trials, while several COVID-19 drugs are also at the clinical trial stage. She explains that more than 100 countries are in a solidarity trial.
We have a total of 89 vaccines that are in development globally, including 7 in clinical evaluation, and several therapeutics are in clinical trials. WHO is committed to ensuring that as medicines and vaccines are developed, they are shared equitably with all countries and people. We do have the Solidarity Trial that some of you may have heard about. It's an international clinical trial to help find an effective treatment for COVID-19, launched by the WHO and partners. More than 100 countries have joined the Solidarity Trial, and to date, over 1,200 patients have been randomized from the first 5 countries to evaluate the safety and efficacy of 4 drugs and drug combinations. Nigeria has also expressed interest to be part of this Solidarity Trial, and efforts are underway to start the process in Nigeria.
Joining us via Skype from the Amuwo-Odofe area of Lagos to look at the latest developments in COVID-19 is a consultant public health physician, Dr. Modupe Akiyinka. Good evening, Doc. Thanks for your time at this hour.
Good evening. Thank you for having me on the program.
Let me begin with what was said last, the issue of vaccines and vaccine trials and the possibility that we might soon have some kind of drugs and vaccines to treat COVID-19. Earlier on today and yesterday, there were some prominent Nigerians who were talking about putting out home remedies, things that they say they've used that have helped them, some of those who have survived COVID, notably the Bauchi State Governor, Bala Mohammed, who has instructed those in his state to try a combination of a particular number of drugs. Put all this together, do you think that we are on our way? Should we have real hope that at some point we will get this correct?
Yes, we must have hope. We must have hope. We cannot give up hope at this time. We must have hope, and we must keep looking for a cure, looking for a way out of the situation. So we must have hope.
NCDC says that, it's considering having home treatments, that is, have people stay at home and be treated at home because of the issue of struggle with bed spacing and facilities. Is this okay, and how should we be going about doing this?
Well, it will have to come to that eventually, because, for example, what we have in Lagos State now, well, the isolation centers we have, if we add up all the figures that I have here, we have about 1,025 or thereabout spaces for patients. And if we're going to have many more patients with the gradual easing of the lockdown, then definitely we must have more isolation centers. And if all these people that get infected eventually cannot find space in an isolation center, then we must begin to think about home management of COVID-19. So, which means that from now on, we have to start to bring out or develop guidelines on how we can manage COVID-19, particularly the asymptomatic cases in the home. It's going to be challenging, but by the time we have, or if we come up with too many cases, then that will become something that we need to do. So we have to start planning for that from now, because with the capacity we have now, it's about 74% occupancy rate already in Lagos State. So if we look at the remaining number of beds, we have about just 269 beds left. So if that is not talking about the holding areas, the hotels, because Lagos State government has also told us that they are getting additional holding areas for positive patients in Ekpe, in Lekki, in VI, in Ikeja, and all of those places, hotels where we can isolate cases, but we need more. So we need people to also volunteer and give up their huge residences if they have such, and then big hotels that can take up more patients, so that at least we can increase our bed capacity for our isolation centers. Because now that more people will be out on the streets, it means that infections are likely to rise. The number of new cases are likely to increase. So we must prepare for that. And we also need to educate our people as people start to go out as well, that they're going out does not mean that they throw away everything about COVID-19. The fact that the lockdown is being eased does not mean we have forgotten about it, because the number of cases are rising. So the social distancing must continue. The washing of hands, frequent washing of hands must continue. The not touching your face without washing your hands must continue. So we have to keep up with all of these things in order to ensure that we still are able to reduce the number of cases, and then we must prepare for a larger number of cases.
There is the question about collective responsibility, which the chairman of the Presidential Task Force, Mr. Mustafa, was talking about and has been harping on for quite a while. Now, the example he gave earlier today was that of Sweden, where there is no lockdown and they're not wearing face masks, but there is strict compliance, strict adherence to these measures that you have identified. Our own example, sadly, is not the same because even when we were under lockdown, we were not complying. The vast majority of people were not complying. Now that the lockdown is being eased, what is there to suggest that there will be better compliance?
In our case, fine. If we compare us with Sweden, our people are not, or do not manifest as much obedience to rules the way you would see in Sweden. But even the Sweden that we're talking about, even Sweden has had so many more cases and deaths from COVID-19 than their neighbors. Denmark, Norway, the countries surrounding them. The number of deaths that their neighbors have had are under 500 as at a few days ago, but Swedish deaths have been more than about 2,500 as at a few days ago. So not having a lockdown, I don't think has helped Sweden much. But with us, we have had a lockdown, so at least we've had that huge advantage that we have tried to flatten our curve. But now that we have to ease that lockdown, because we can't be on lockdown forever, and many of a huge part of our population are in that category whereby they have to get their daily bread, or they have to earn their income on a daily basis. And so government listened to their cry and then is easing the lockdown. So now each person must take personal responsibility. We must remember to ensure that as we go out, if we have to go out, even the going out is not something that you must do. If you have to go out, all right, that is when you go out. If you don't have to go out, please stay at home. But if you have to go out, then make sure that you're wearing your mask, you're washing your hands regularly, at least about every 2 hours. You are physically distancing yourself from the next person. All right, so, and then you're not touching your face with your hands, and then people need to know how to handle the masks as well, so that we're not infecting ourselves with the masks that we are using. Right, so it has now come to a point of personal responsibility, because at the end of the day, anybody that has it it's not the government that is going to feel the pain of suffering from COVID-19 like that. It is that person, that individual. So that's why we urge each person to take personal responsibility. It is so essential at this time.
Dr. Modupe Akinka, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for the clarification there about the examples that were given. It's been a pleasure having you with us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Now, as Nigeria continues to grapple with the pandemic of COVID-19, the Nigeria labor unions have condemned the planned move by some state governors to cut workers' salaries. Our correspondent, Loretta Chogo, was with the deputy president of the labor union, that is the NLC, Amechi Asuguni, who insists that such plan is insensitive and not needed at this trying time.
The move to cutting workers' salary is unacceptable in the sense that the COVID-19, workers have been meant to create their own palliative in the environment. Don't forget, a worker employment is beyond his household. At a time like this, everybody is supporting government program in establishing to the extent that vulnerables get to getting this COVID-19 relief from workers. So I want to believe that workers who are supposed to be part of cushioning the effect of this COVID-19 lockdown in extension to these vulnerables cannot also be made vulnerable. Avoidance of payment of workers is like messing up the entire system. When you say workers should not get their full pay, you have already started sending signal to the economy that yes, it was not well yesterday, but it's going to be worse tomorrow. When workers are affected, it means the vulnerable is facing death. So it will be too early, too insensitive to talk about not getting our full salary in the earliest month. This is the first month of the lockdown. So it was very unpopular to begin to reason towards cutting of salaries.
Amechi Asuguni, Deputy President of the Nigeria Labour Congress. The Metropolitan Club has donated 3,200 coronavirus test kits to the Lagos State government. The donation, according to the organization, is part of a series of other donations it is making in a show of solidarity to the state government in its efforts to combat the pandemic. The state government, the items, which comprised mainly viral transport mediums, were received by the Lagos State Commissioner for Health, Professor Aki Abayomi, on behalf of the state government. Professor Abayomi described the gesture as a welcome development and timely, especially in light of the reported global shortage of test kits.
Testing more and more, and as we ramp up our testing, we're now testing close to 500, sometimes more a day. That means we will consume 500 of these packs, just collecting samples every day. So this donation will last us at least a week. You know, they're scarce on the market. We have to import from all over the world because the whole world there's a shortage all over the world. So, you know, the samples are actually very scarce to find. You know, so this goes a long way to support the Lagos State COVID-19 response as far as the testing is concerned.
The president of the club, Alhaji Femi Kunu, is very passionate about this. You know, he has been pushing us, pushing the members. Hey, we need this money, we need this. And so he has got us, all of us involved in making sure that we implement whatever we can to intervene to assist the states. We are providing today 3,200 of the VTMs. So that at least means we can carry out 3,200 tests. And we also previously presented the ambulance. So that's, we will do more.
We'll take a break at this point. When we come back, we'll bring you the latest from the NCDC website, plus what's happening beyond our shows. Do stay on with us. Thanks for staying tuned. Welcome back to our COVID-19 update studios. Before we go any further, let's check in with our roving reporter, correspondent Olu Phillips, who made to understand is somewhere in Ikeja, Lagos. Thank God, Olu, this time around, you're not surrounded by a crowd of people not keeping social distance from you. Good evening. Where exactly are you?
Absolutely, laddie. Well, I'm at Ikeja, just some 100 meters away from, I'm actually on Awolowo Road, very close to the Ikeja roundabout here in Lagos, and that's about 500 meters away from the seat of power. The reason being that we need to understand how it's going down here, and so that by the time we possibly were reporting from here next week, you'll be able to see the difference between what activities here we have today and what we're going to have next week, when eventually activities resume in terms of businesses and trading around here. Here used to be a beehive of activity, like shops around here, boutiques and all of that, but that is quiet this evening. That's the situation really for that, and as we progress, I would like to hear you.
What are people telling you about their preparations? Are they ready for this gradual easing down? Do they understand that this is a gradual easing down and not business as usual from Monday, in which case quite a number of people are expecting that the roads will be crowded, markets will be opened, restaurants, people can go in back and forth, and that all working places will have their full complement of staff?
Laddie, something is very clear, and let's also be very clear about it. We are in Ikeja, and just on the stretch of this road, you have about 3-4 points and checkpoints, and that's because this is the seat of power. So you expect some level and high level of compliance in terms of activity. You can't judge what is happening in other parts of Lagos with what's happening here in Ikeja. As we drove down here, we realized that people are already beginning to test run what next week will be like. And they're forgetting so quickly that the lockdown, to my mind, is like the quinine to malaria. It's a bitter treatment, but it's a necessary treatment if you have to get malaria off. People are not sure, they are aware, and from what the indications we have, they just want to hit the ground running as far as Monday is concerned. I don't know how many people will really understand that, first of all, for businesses, the state government has said it has to be about 60% operation in terms of capacity. It has to be between 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock. I do not understand if people know that this is what they want to do, because from our conversations, they just want to get out of what they call imprisonment that has happened in the last 5 to 6 weeks, Laddie.
Finally, Olu, I also need to find out from you, being out there on the streets, if indeed what you've just described is the situation, how then are people preparing to know that COVID-19 is not going to disappear on Monday? It's just that we've got to open up the economy. What are they telling you about the various preparations that they have with specific reference to Monday in order to keep the gains that we have managed to acquire over the last couple of weeks going after this lockdown has been eased?
Laddie, let me run some numbers for you if I remember my elementary arithmetic. First of all, what we are doing there and here in channels and on channels television is to sustain the momentum and make sure that people understand that this is not something you can wish away. And that's why every night, every day, 3 times we are talking about COVID and the implications of COVID. Let me run a little mathematics for you. If assuming we are 22 million people here in Lagos, and from the handles of the Lagos Commissioner for Health, we have tested over about 8,000 or thereabout. Now, let me do this. If they have tested 220,000 people, for instance, that is 1% of the population. If we have tested just 22,000, that's 0.1%, less than 1%, I should say, of the population. So that tells you that people need to really understand that by Monday, when government has decided to ease off or ease down on the lockdown, does not necessarily signal that the battle for COVID-19 is over. And this has to be sounded very loud and clear, because from our conversations yesterday about community transmission and all of that, it is clear that people just see this as a punishment to be locked in and all of that. But from Monday, we need to do, and government needs to do more in terms of aggressive, if you may say, marketing and aggressive information dissemination to make sure that people understand that COVID-19 is real. Lagos occupies a 50% position in terms of what's happening across the country. There are over 700 active cases now in Lagos. Yes, even the Lagos State Commissioner and the state government are crying for more beds. They just commissioned 118 beds today somewhere in Bagada, which was supposed to be a facility for renal and cardiac treatment, which was built by the previous government, government of Fashola and all of that. But we don't want more beds. If it is possible, we don't want more beds, and we don't want more people coming down to COVID-19. What happens if we begin to test aggressively as far as COVID-19 is concerned? I don't want to guess that. I don't want to think it. I don't want to imagine it, Ladi.
Neither do I, Olu. Thank you so much for your reporting. Our correspondent, Olu Phillips in Ikeja, Lagos. And do stay safe out there. As Olu was reporting, the total confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Nigeria is touching on the 2,000 mark, currently standing at 1,932. Figures from the website of the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, the NCDC, also show that 319 patients have been discharged, but a total of 58 deaths have been recorded. A state-by-state breakdown indicates that Lagos now has 976 cases, Kano 219, FCT 178, Gombe has 76, Borno 66, Ogun 56, Edo 44, Katsina 40, Bauchi 38, Sokoto 36, Kaduna 35, Osun 34, Oyo 23, Akwa Ibom 16, Rivers 13, Kwara 11. Ondo and Delta have 9 each, Taraba and Ekiti have 8 each, Jigawa 7, Bayelsa 5, Zamfara 4, Nasarawa and Enugu 3 each, Abia, Niger, Adamawa, Ebonyi and Kebbi have 2 cases each, while Benue, Anambra, Plateau, Imo, and Yobe have 1 case each. Joining me in the studios is another public health physician, this time Dr. Ann Okoma. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
What did you make of the comments made earlier today about the participation, the hope, the expectation in the usage or the possible usage of medications before we even come to the issue of vaccine, but medications that seem to have worked for those who have COVID-19 to recover? Should this now be ramped up? Should the information become widespread, as some of those who have recovered have been suggesting that more and more people should use those?
Well, thank you, Ladi, for that question. One thing we have to realize with the treatment of COVID-19 is that, it's specific for each patient depending on what symptoms they actually present with. And so for some persons, medications were not even used at all. And then for people, it depended on the symptoms which they had presented with. Yes, it would be nice to try all those medications that have been used. I mean, it would be a good thing to try them.
But ultimately, the big hope is in the vaccine, because that's the one that can prevent people from actually having to go and present themselves for treatment.
Yes.
That's been quite controversial, with people saying, oh, we have the solution here, but nobody's looking in our direction because we are not Western medical doctors and so. Do you think that perhaps there's any truth in that? I mean, given your experience, is there any truth in that possibly some of these homegrown solutions, if you like, could possibly work, and that they are worth subjecting to some kind of test to confirm if they do work?
Yes, I think we should begin to look inwards and not just wait for help from Europe. Because if you take China, for example, you would see that they are also trying out plants and it's working out for them. And so we have institutes of research which the government can actually also fund and then invest more in researches, and then we can begin to look at some of our own plants here and see what will work best for us. So it wouldn't be out of place to actually do that. So everybody now needs to try every method that is available, yes.
Let me bring you to the one that is pending against Monday. You heard Olu there talking about his own experience with the people that he's met in Ikeja and a number of other places. Quite a lot of people seem to believe that come Monday, life will go back to the way they knew it before 6 or 7 weeks ago. People like you have said, no, it cannot. But that message does not seem to be going right across. Why do you think that is so, and how dangerous can it be if it really doesn't go across?
Yes, I think right now Nigerians need to understand. They need to understand the meaning of the word to ease off or easing of the lockdown. And the government have come up with guidelines that have been released already. So we know that yes, certain businesses will be allowed to operate from 9 a.m. to about 3 p.m. and then from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. there'll be a curfew. Now we need to understand that in as much as yes, people have been feeling like they've been caged in their homes, this is now a time for us to even be extra vigilant on Monday. And so we are seeing an increase in the number of cases. We're talking about community spread going on. And at this point, people must realize that coming out on Monday, if you do not even have any reason to be out of your houses on Monday, it would be advisable to still stay at home. Because right now we're having a community spread. And so we are at the danger of even seeing these cases and the numbers rise further. The reason why the government will have to, at this point, make sure that there is enforcement so that people comply and adhere strictly to all the safety measures. So those who are going to be in the offices, you've been told 60% capacity. At this point, yes, so we're talking about whistleblowing. All these things have to be clearly spelled out. And then people have to understand that they have to be extra vigilant because everybody now is a potential COVID-19 patient, whether we like it or not. And now we've seen a lot of people coming up as asymptomatic cases. So the fact that an individual looks healthy to you doesn't mean that they're not contagious. So we all now at this point now coming out have to put on the face mask or the face coverings, ensure that we keep our distances of at least 2 meters, and then wash our hands regularly with soap and water, and then at the same time have an alcohol-based hand rub. If you do not have access to soap and water, avoid touching the face mask and all that. So we have to take seriously all preventive measures.
The final thing I want to ask you about is this issue of facilities. Olu again referred to the fact that today a 100 plus bed facility was commissioned in Bagada by the Lagos State Governor. And indeed across the country there have been attempts to ramp up this issue of capacity. But because the epicenters, most states still have less than 10 cases. There are a few who have more than that and they're really concentrated, but most states still have less than 10 cases. But the attempt, in Lagos for example, there's now an issue of bed space. And we are still talking of less than 1,000 cases as it is. And if you subtract those who have recovered, it's about 700 or thereabouts. Should we be focusing now on identifying, testing, and bringing out those who have? Or should we be focusing on preventing more people from becoming potential COVID-19 victims? Since, in spite of our attempts to quickly ramp up, we don't seem to have the required facilities if it becomes a real deluge.
Yeah. So at this point now, the government now would need to now put a realistic approach to this. And with the issue of the facilities, yes, we're not having inadequate bed space because of the rising numbers of cases that we're finding. So at this point now, the government now will start to look at having to manage mild cases or asymptomatic cases at home, monitoring them adequately with some level of counseling. These patients will be monitored and then taken care of at home, because we have to know that not all cases need to be hospitalized, because this will be an unrealistic approach. And then they now can at this point also all see moderate to severe cases, right. And then maybe the elderly and then those people who have comorbidities can now be moved to the isolation centers at this point. And then the government also might try to see how they can go into partnership with the private sector and see how they can convert some of these private hospitals strictly to isolation centers, because we also do not want people commercializing the pandemic.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, then. Thank you so very much, Dr. Ann Okoma. Thank you so much for coming in. It's a pleasure having you with us. Now from that, let's go to Imo for yet another update. Our correspondent Tokwe Kute has the update from Owerri, its capital.
Sharing news for indigents of Imo State as the state government is set to relax some of its lockdown orders in the state. In a Mayday broadcast this afternoon by the Imo State Governor Uzodimma, he announced that effective from Sunday 3rd May 2020, all food markets, food vending supermarkets and pharmaceutical shops will be permitted to open for business, while large markets will still remain shut. The borders into Imo State will also remain closed, and the 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. dusk to dawn curfew will still be intact.
COVID-19 is a reality, and we must continue to observe all the necessary safeguards, even as we ease some of the restrictions that we put in place. In this regard, I wish to announce that effective Sunday, May 3rd, 2020, all food markets and food vending supermarkets and pharmaceutical shops are permitted to open. The wearing of the face mask is mandatory by the law of the state. Consequently, any person caught without face mask shall be arrested and prosecuted. Also, effective Sunday, May 3rd, 2020, public gatherings not exceeding 50 persons at a time shall be allowed. However, the rule of social distancing must be strictly adhered to.
In the mood of the Workers' Day celebration amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, the Nigerian Labour Congress in Imo State is appealing to the state government to pay up all outstanding salaries and pensions, and also extend the distribution of palliatives and stimulus packages to workers and pensioners in Imo State. The state has not recorded any other case of the coronavirus disease apart from the index case recorded last week, but the state government is still appealing to indigents to continue to observe all the guidelines put in place by medical authorities and the state government to contain the spread of the coronavirus disease in Imo State. From Owerri, the Imo State capital, Tokwe Kute.
We're going beyond our shores now, where South Africa has begun the implementation of slightly reduced lockdown restrictions as part of plans to gradually open up the economy and bring life back to normal. Level 4 lockdown, as it is called, saw lots of people out on the streets earlier in the day taking walks and running between 6 and 9 a.m. While some obeyed the restrictions, some were not so compliant. Channels Television went to some parts of Johannesburg to see how some people are taking their first breath of street air in 5 weeks.
Well, the government did, and they are as excited as their owners. Workers and joggers are happy. They have a 3-hour window to do this, hence the crowd. Some people more safety compliant than others.
It's a terrible thing. Some aren't, and some are wearing masks and some aren't. And they aren't supposed to be in the park, and they are. So yeah, I mean, they should be following the rules.
I feel really happy to be able to run outside. I'm not sure about the 6 to 9 thing because it's busy. I think it would be better to let us out for like 2 hours at any time. But really happy to be outside.
Well, I think it is good to get the 3 hours. I think we should take anything that the government gives us at the moment and appreciate it.
It's fit.
More businesses are now open, and surely mask business is good business right now, or not?
Actually, I would prefer level 5 because level 5, it was difficult, but as for us selling, level 5 was okay because we're just a few. Now there are too much people selling, so it's challenging.
It is also challenging times to be marking Labor Day when the leaders reach out to the people.
To emerge from this crisis will require an extraordinary effort. Our central concern on this Workers' Day is for the health of all our people.
Indeed, we must flatten the COVID-19 curve, as well as we must and should flatten the inequality, unemployment, and poverty curves.
While some people are breathing a bit easier now, the sale of alcohol and cigarettes is still prohibited. Expectedly, smokers are still fuming and signing a huge petition against the reversal of the earlier green light given by President Cyril Ramaphosa. For now, as well, schools remain closed and there's a curfew between 8 p.m. and 5 a.m. Well, it's only day one of level 4 lockdown. Hopefully, the government will have no reason to take it back to level 5. From Bui, Johannesburg Central Business District, Betty Dibia, Channels Television News.
And when we return, we'll find out why 10 U.S. states have today begun lifting restrictions imposed to limit COVID-19. Please stay on with us. Thanks for staying tuned. 10 U.S. states have today begun lifting restrictions imposed to limit COVID-19. Texas is amongst them and will allow restaurants, cinemas, and other businesses to reopen if they limit capacity to 25%. Alabama, Maine, and Tennessee are also following stay-at-home orders to expire. Others face a longer timetable. Some $12 billion is to be given to nearly 400 U.S. hospitals hardest hit by the coronavirus pandemic. That's according to White House Press Secretary Kelly McEnany, who announced that today. We are being joined by our correspondent in Washington, D.C., Maria Bird. Good evening, Maria. Thank you for your time and welcome.
Thank you.
Let's begin with these states that are unwinding or unlocking themselves. What more can you tell us about that? Why only 10? Why not the others?
Well, at this time, we're still seeing growing cases of the coronavirus. I mean, just in Georgia, 1,000 cases, 1,000 new cases. I mean, so every day the number of cases are continuing to increase. And so there's still a lot of orders out there that are keeping things closed because people still have not been able to understand the social distancing rules, along with being able to wear masks and gloves. And so due to that, the public spread is still a real threat. And again, we have not been able to have a vaccine that will be released until probably January at the earliest. And so there's still a high probability that many will be able to contract COVID-19.
There are protests in the states that have not reopened.
Yes, there are protests in California, Michigan. I mean, even in Michigan, there have been individuals going to the state house with machine guns. And so the governor's had to have some real security to be able to protect herself from individuals that are highly enraged by the state not reopening. But again, this is an economic issue. People are thinking about, their rent, their mortgage, their car notes, the basic grocery needs. And so when you have that type of deep economic need, you're going to have people to say, forget about the health issue, I need to get back to work.
Finally, Maria, looking ahead now, the economic crisis that COVID-19 has caused, as you've just reported, is enraging quite a number of people. But overall, is this a pointer to the fact that the economy is going to become the dominant topic even as we continue with this?
The economy will definitely be the dominant topic. I think we're going to see really the effects of the economic crises that we're currently in are not going to really be seen for another 6 to 12 months as things start to sprinkle out. I mean, you're seeing many small businesses that have had to shut their doors because they just cannot sustain, even with the stimulus money, even with the ability to have online shopping. This has not been enough for them to sustain. And so when you talk about the number of small businesses that are closing, that means those individuals will not have jobs come 3, 4, 5, or 6 months from now.
Maria Bird, thank you so much for your reporting from Washington, D.C. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
With more than 3 million people around the world infected with the coronavirus, it is hard to focus on the small successes, such as the number of recoveries. Interestingly, more than 1 million people have recovered from the disease, but as the death toll gets higher, Europe continues to hold the torch for the rising figures.
COVID-19 cases have been reported in 187 countries and regions since the first outbreak of the virus in December. Europe and the United States are the worst hit. But in positive development, more than 1 million people have now officially recovered from COVID-19. The US has had the most recoveries of 153,947, but has also had the largest number of cases with over 1 million. Which has the world's second highest confirmed cases, China, where the coronavirus originated last December, and Italy, which has confirmed the highest fatalities behind the United States.
And just before we go, just to let you know that we would like to know what you are doing to help fight the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic. You may have heard of the Senegalese who made the $1 testing kit, or the Nigerian technicians who repaired ventilators in Plateau State. Yours may not be as technical or in fact medical, but would love to know about it all the same. So do send your videos or pictures of what it is you are doing to any of our social media platforms right there on your screen. Thank you for being with us. My name is Ladi Akiridulwale. We're back on Monday at noon with updates at 6 and 9. But for now, do have a wonderful weekend ahead. Good night.